The vastness of space stretched out before her, a canvas of stars and darkness, but her eyes were fixed on a small blue planet. She was known as Zyra, a warrior of the Zorian race, and she gazed at Earth with a mixture of disdain and curiosity. The tiny beings inhabiting this planet, called humans, were insignificant in her eyes. She couldn't fathom why the Galactic Council even considered them worthy of attention. Her lips curled into a slight smirk, thinking of them as nothing more than a primitive species clinging to a rock. The Zorians had long held dominion over the galaxy, their technology surpassing that of any known civilization. They were tall, imposing beings with minds sharp enough to command entire star systems. Their ships were the size of cities, their weapons capable of reducing planets to dust. Zyra herself was a decorated leader, her prowess in battle legendary among her people. The Zorians viewed other species with condescension, believing that their advanced evolution placed them at the pinnacle of galactic hierarchy. To them, humanity was merely a footnote in the grand saga of the cosmos. Zyra had been sent to observe the humans, a task she considered beneath her. But orders were orders, and she fulfilled them with a sense of duty, if not interest. As she watched them from the safety of her cloaked vessel, she marveled at their rudimentary technology. Their ships were small, their weapons outdated, and their bodies frail. How could a species so vulnerable have survived in such a hostile universe? It was almost laughable. Yet, as she observed more closely, she noticed something curious. Despite their apparent weaknesses, humans displayed a remarkable tenacity. They worked together with a unity she hadn't expected, overcoming obstacles through sheer will and cleverness. There was a particular incident that caught her attention. A human ship, vastly inferior to the Zorian standards, found itself in a perilous situation. Zyra watched with amusement, expecting them to fail. But instead, the humans displayed an uncanny ability to adapt. They rerouted power, sacrificed non-essential systems, and used their limited resources in ways that defied logic. It was as though they possessed a collective mind, each individual contributing to a larger, more efficient whole. Zyra couldn't help but feel a pang of respect, though she quickly dismissed it as fleeting. As the days passed, Zyra's observations continued, and with them, a growing sense of unease. The humans, despite their small stature and simple tools, were not as predictable as she had first believed. There was a fire in them, a resilience that reminded her of the early days of the Zorian Empire. But it was something more, a depth of emotion and a drive that seemed to go beyond mere survival. She noticed how they bonded over shared experiences, how they mourned their dead and celebrated their victories. There was a richness to their existence, an intangible quality that Zyra couldn't quite put into words. The first seeds of doubt began to take root in her mind. Could it be that she had misjudged them? Was there more to humanity than met the eye? Zyra pushed these thoughts aside, refusing to let them take hold. She was a warrior, and warriors did not question the status quo. But the doubt lingered, a small but persistent voice in the back of her mind. She continued to watch, her arrogance slowly being chipped away, replaced by something she hadn't felt in a long time, curiosity. Zyra didn't know it yet, but this curiosity would soon lead her down a path she never expected. A path where the lines between strength and weakness, superiority and inferiority, would blur, and where she would come to see the tiny humans in a light she could never have imagined. Zyra's mission took a turn when a seemingly insignificant skirmish broke out between a human colony and a rogue band of interstellar pirates. The Zorian Council had deemed the matter trivial, not worth their direct involvement. Yet Zyra, curious about human reactions, decided to intervene. She was confident that with her advanced technology and unmatched combat skills, the humans would be no more than a footnote in the encounter. She descended upon the battlefield, her ship's weapons gleaming with an energy far beyond anything the humans could muster. As the battle began, Zyra launched a calculated assault, fully expecting the humans to crumble under the might of her attack. But they didn't. Instead, they moved with a precision that surprised her. The human forces, though outgunned and outmatched, were not disorganized or desperate. They were focused, their movements coordinated like a well-rehearsed dance. Zyra observed as they adapted their strategies on the fly, exploiting every small weakness in the pirates' defenses and turning the tide of battle. They used the environment to their advantage, setting traps and diversions that forced the pirates into tight corners. Zyra found herself unexpectedly caught in one of these diversions. A small human vessel, seemingly crippled, drew her attention. She moved in to finish it off, only to realize too late that it was a decoy. The real threat came from another direction, an unseen human strike force that had positioned itself to disable her ship's shields. The maneuver was so swift and executed with such precision that Zyra could only watch in disbelief as her shields flickered and went down, leaving her vulnerable. She had underestimated them, assuming that their primitive technology couldn't possibly pose a real threat. But now, her arrogance had led her into a trap. Frustration surged through Zyra as she quickly rerouted power to restore her shields. How had these tiny beings managed to outmaneuver her? Her anger was mixed with confusion. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. Humans were supposed to be weak, predictable, easily defeated. Yet here they were, forcing her to reassess every assumption she had made about them. She had come into this battle expecting an easy victory, but instead, she found herself locked in a contest of wits with an enemy that refused to play by her rules. As the battle raged on, Zyra's initial arrogance began to erode. For the first time, she felt a grudging respect for these humans. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving, pushing her to the limits of her capabilities. Their unity, their ability to think on their feet, and their relentless drive were all things she had dismissed as irrelevant, but now she saw them for what they truly were: strengths. Zyra realized that in underestimating the humans, she had made a grave mistake. The final moments of the skirmish were tense. Zyra managed to regain control of her ship, but the damage had been done. The humans had proven that they were more than capable of holding their own, and Zyra found herself facing a new reality. The battle ended in a stalemate, with the pirates driven off and the human colony intact, thanks largely to their own efforts. As Zyra retreated to the safety of space, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just witnessed something extraordinary. As she reviewed the events, a troubling thought crept into her mind. If humans could challenge her like this in a minor conflict, what might they be capable of in a larger war? The question lingered, unanswered, as she stared out into the void, her confidence shaken. The tiny humans were not what they seemed, and for the first time, Zyra wondered if the Zorians had been too quick to dismiss them. The encounter had left her with more questions than answers, and a growing sense of unease that she could no longer ignore. The situation had escalated far beyond what Zyra had anticipated. What began as a routine observation had turned into a tense standoff between her and the human forces. The Zorian command, intrigued by her reports, ordered her to engage directly with the human leader who had orchestrated the colony's defense. This was to be a high-stakes negotiation, and Zyra, though initially reluctant, found herself curious about this human who had managed to challenge her so effectively. The moment arrived. She entered the negotiation chamber, fully expecting to overpower the human with her presence and superior intellect. But as soon as she laid eyes on him, she felt an unfamiliar unease. The human, a captain named Daniel Reeve, stood calmly, his gaze steady and unflinching. There was something in his eyes, a quiet strength that took Zyra by surprise. He was not intimidated by her towering figure or the advanced technology she wielded. Instead, he spoke with a calm authority, laying out his terms with a confidence that unsettled her. This was no ordinary being. There was a resolve in him that she hadn't expected. As the negotiation unfolded, Zyra found herself on the defensive. Daniel wasn't just a skilled tactician, he was a leader who inspired unwavering loyalty from his people. He spoke of the colony's struggles, the challenges they had overcome, and the unwavering spirit of his crew. Zyra learned that Daniel had risen through the ranks not because of his physical prowess, but because of his intelligence, determination, and an unyielding belief in the resilience of humanity. He had led his people through countless adversities, each one shaping him into a formidable opponent. His strength was not in his size or weapons, but in his ability to think strategically, to adapt, and to inspire those around him. As Daniel recounted his experiences, Zyra felt her earlier disdain melt away. She saw, for the first time, the true potential of humanity. These weren't just fragile beings, they were survivors, warriors in their own right, with a spirit that refused to be crushed. She realized that her initial judgments had been based on superficial observations. The human strength lay not in their physicality but in their ability to endure, to fight back even when the odds were stacked against them. This realization hit her with an unexpected force. For the first time in her life, Zyra felt a deep respect for an opponent, a respect born from understanding rather than fear. The negotiation ended without a clear victory for either side, but something had changed within Zyra. She returned to her ship, her mind racing. The human captain had shown her something she had never seen before, a glimpse into the indomitable spirit of humanity. It was a strength that couldn't be measured by technology or power alone, and it left her questioning everything she had been taught about superiority and weakness. As Zyra sat in her quarters, reflecting on the encounter, she felt a growing conflict within herself. Her pride as a Zorian warrior clashed with the admiration she now held for the humans. She had come to this corner of the galaxy believing in the absolute dominance of her species, but now she wasn't so sure. The humans had shown her that there was more to strength than sheer power, and that realization was slowly reshaping her understanding of the universe. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: Zyra could no longer see humans as insignificant. They had earned her respect, and with it came a new perspective that would guide her in the days to come. The turning point had been reached, and nothing would be the same again. The moment had arrived. Zyra found herself at the helm of a confrontation far more significant than she had ever anticipated. The humans, no longer the insignificant beings she once thought them to be, had proven themselves formidable, and now she was about to face them in a final, decisive battle. The stakes had never been higher. Failure was not an option for either side. Zyra knew that underestimating them again could lead to her downfall, and the consequences would ripple far beyond this single conflict. The battlefield was set, and both sides prepared for the inevitable clash. Zyra, with all the might of Zorian technology at her disposal, believed she had the upper hand. Yet there was a nagging doubt in her mind, a voice that reminded her of Captain Daniel Reeve and the human's uncanny ability to turn the tide. As the first shots were fired, Zyra quickly realized that this was not going to be a simple victory. The humans moved with precision, executing maneuvers that left her forces scrambling to keep up. It was clear that they had been planning for this moment, and every action they took was calculated to exploit the weaknesses in her strategy. The humans' plan was nothing short of brilliant. They had anticipated Zyra's every move, using their knowledge of her tactics against her. As her forces pushed forward, they found themselves trapped in a complex web of counterattacks and diversions. The humans had turned the battlefield into a labyrinth, one that Zyra struggled to navigate. Key moments unfolded with a precision that left her in awe. A human fleet, seemingly outmatched, suddenly revealed hidden reinforcements, catching her forces off guard. Another group executed a daring raid on her supply lines, cutting off her ability to sustain the offensive. Zyra watched in disbelief as the humans systematically dismantled her strategy. They were relentless, their resolve unbreakable. Despite the odds, they fought with a determination that bordered on defiance. Each time she thought she had them cornered, they found a way to escape, to regroup, and to strike back with renewed vigor. It was as though they thrived on adversity, growing stronger with every challenge. The tide had turned, and for the first time in her life, Zyra knew what it felt like to be outmatched. As the battle reached its climax, Zyra's forces were in disarray. The humans had achieved what she once thought impossible: they had defeated her. But as the realization sank in, she found herself feeling something unexpected: respect. This was not the bitter taste of defeat she had feared. Instead, it was a profound admiration for the strength and ingenuity of the humans. They had earned their victory, not through brute force, but through strategy, courage, and an indomitable spirit. Zyra knew that she had been wrong to dismiss them, and with this defeat came a new understanding. She lowered her weapons, signaling the end of the conflict. In a gesture that surprised even her, she extended an offer of peace, a recognition of the human strength and the potential for something greater than conflict between their species. This was no longer about pride or dominance. It was about acknowledging that the humans were a force to be reckoned with, one that could change the course of the galaxy. As Zyra returned to her ship, the implications of what had just transpired weighed heavily on her mind. The humans had proven themselves, not just as worthy opponents, but as potential allies. This battle would be remembered, not just for the victory won by the humans, but for the shift it represented in the relationship between their species. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the galaxy had just witnessed the beginning of a new era, one where the lines between enemy and ally were no longer as clear as they once seemed. Zyra's return to her homeworld was marked by a silence that spoke volumes. The final confrontation with the humans had ended, not in the glory of victory she had anticipated, but in a defeat that carried with it a profound revelation. As she approached the Zorian capital, she prepared herself to face her superiors, knowing that the story she had to tell would challenge everything they believed. The council gathered to hear her report, expecting tales of triumph. Instead, they were met with the sobering account of a battle lost, not just in physical terms, but in the assumptions they had held about their place in the galaxy. Zyra spoke of the humans, of their resilience and ingenuity, of the strength they had shown in the face of overwhelming odds. She described how they had turned her own strategies against her, how they had outmaneuvered her with a level of intelligence and unity that rivaled even the Zorians. Her words were met with disbelief, and then with silence, as the weight of her experience settled over the council. For a long time, no one spoke, until finally, one of the elders asked the question that lingered in all their minds. "What does this mean for us?" In the days that followed, Zyra's report spread throughout the Zorian Empire, sparking debates and discussions that would reshape their society. She had returned not just as a warrior who had faced defeat, but as a messenger bearing a truth that could not be ignored. The humans were no longer seen as insignificant. They were recognized as a force to be reckoned with. And with this recognition came a shift in perspective, one that would have far-reaching consequences for the entire galaxy. Zyra herself had changed. The pride that had once defined her had given way to a humility born of experience. She no longer saw herself as inherently superior to those she encountered. Instead, she understood that true strength came in many forms, and that underestimating others was a dangerous path. Her journey had been one of transformation, from a leader driven by arrogance to one guided by wisdom. She began to advocate for a new approach, one that valued cooperation and respect over domination. Her words carried weight, for they were backed by the hard-earned lessons she had learned from the humans. As the Zorian Empire began to adjust to this new reality, the impact of the humans' actions rippled through the galaxy. Other species took note of the victory, recognizing that humanity was not to be dismissed. The humans had earned a place among the galaxy's powers, their actions speaking louder than any words could. They were no longer the underdogs. They were a force with the potential to shape the future of the galaxy. This newfound respect led to alliances that would have been unthinkable before, as species once divided by mistrust began to see the value in unity. In the quiet moments after the dust had settled, Zyra reflected on the journey she had taken. She thought of the humans, of Captain Daniel Reeve, and of the lessons they had taught her. The galaxy was vast, full of countless beings, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. But the true strength, she realized, lay in understanding, in humility, and in the willingness to see beyond the surface. The humans had shown her that, and in doing so, they had not only changed her but had also altered the course of history. As she looked out into the stars, Zyra knew that the future held many challenges. But she also knew that the galaxy would face them together, with a newfound respect for the diverse forms of strength that existed within it. Her journey served as a reminder to all that underestimating others was a mistake, and that true power lay in the ability to grow, to learn, and to respect the strength that others bring to the table. The story of the tiny humans, once mocked, now stood as a testament to the power of resilience, intelligence, and the quiet strength that had changed the galaxy forever.